This week's readings have provided us with a well-rounded perspective of various factors that influence the teaching and the learning of L2 writing. Williams begins by examining those factors as they relate to the following four main topics: the use of text to teaching L2 academic writing, the characteristics of L2 writers, the processes involved in learning and teaching L2 writing, and the role of the audience. In regards to the use of text in teaching L2 academic writing, Williams points out how traditionally writing instruction has focused on the text that the writers produce, and how teachers use texts that model the required elements of structure and conventions of school-based writing. According to Williams, for L2 writers, learning to write for academic audiences goes beyond grammar and words. Academic writing is explicit. It presents an argument for a claim or an assertion. It excludes personal opinion for the most part, and it tends to be somewhat predictable in its structure. Another characteristic of academic writing is the use of specific language. William explains that learning academic writing is part of the socialization process, and that for L2 learners and any others who are new to the discourse community, it will take time and guidance. Williams emphasizes that mastering the conventions and genres of academic writing are essential for L2 writers to become active participants of the academic discourse community. Ortmeyer Hooper adds that in the 21st century, writing well is a communicative necessity, and that the ability to produce text is intrinsically linked to our ability to be full participatory citizens in our democracy. The second topic that Williams addresses is the characteristics of L2 writers. Williams brings up the questions about the effects of L1 writing expertise, L2 linguistic proficiency, and the L2 writer's reading proficiency. But her contribution on this topic is a bit superficial and incomplete. However, Friedlander informs us that traditional approaches which emphasize the need for L2 writers to think and write in English in order to avoid L1 interference have now been proven to be useless. Various studies indicate that regardless of the language of prescription, writers will transfer writing abilities and strategies, whether good or deficient, from their first language to aid their second language writing. In addition, Friedlander tells us that studies also show that the transfer of good or weak writing skills was independent of language proficiency, and it only affected the quantity of planning. Friedlander also informs that at certain stages of second language development and in circumstances in which the retrieval from memory knowledge about a particular topic is done in the first language can serve as an aid to writing in the second language. According to Friedlander, the positive transfer of first language related content will be enhanced when writers plan their writing using the language in which the information was acquired. Friedlander refers to this as a matching condition versus a mismatch condition, which is when planning occurs in the language not related to topic knowledge before writing the texts in English. Ortmeyer Hooper brings into the equation the role of culture. The author points out that writing expectations and rhetorical traditions are culturally driven, and they may not match North American audiences' expectations. L2 writers may be unfamiliar with concerns about plagiarism and the importance of citing sources, or they may be unfamiliar with pop culture, which could complicate matters when trying to address those topics. Writing about personal topics or argumentative papers could also be difficult for students of certain cultures. Kaplan, on the other hand, focuses on the cultural thought patterns of the writers and urges ESL teachers to keep in mind that logic thought pattern, which is the basis for rhetoric, evolve out of each culture, and that thought patterns are not universal. If L2 students are transferring writing skills and using strategies from their L1, they will also be transferring their rhetoric thought patterns in their L2 writing. Kaplan suggests that ESL teachers use the contrastive analysis of rhetoric approach to help foreign students form standards of judgment consistent with the demands of the educational system of which they have become part of. Kaplan also emphasizes the importance of taking the student past the sentence level to comprehension of the whole context by recognizing the logic of rhetorical structures of English paragraphs. This takes us right into the third topic, the processes involved in learning and teaching L2 writing. William informs us that investigations of L1 and L2 composing processes have found them to be generally similar, yet with significant differences. L2 writers do less planning than native speakers. They are also less fluent and accurate in word selection, and all stages of composing are slower and more laborious for them. Researchers believe that in order to help L2 writers, we should teach them to be better composers using process-oriented instruction to stress the recursive nature of writing. Williams also emphasizes the importance of teaching L2 writers to write for a variety of purposes. The last factor that Williams brings up is the role of the audience. According to Williams, it is important that L2 writers write like readers, to anticipate what their audience needs to know and what they will take from the text that they write. The author urges teachers to assign tasks that invoke a specific audience and to write for a variety of purposes. Ortmeyer Hooper concludes that the differences between English writers and L2 writers have to be acknowledged and understood by teachers to reflect on their work and the kinds of pedagogy they use in their writing classrooms.